Okay, so we'll begin as usual by saying tonight, cheers, Le'ilu Nishmat Avimori Dober Meir Ben Nuhan Halevi Imi Marati Rachel Bat Harav Michael. And tonight we will be discussing the parsha of Va'era, which is the second of the parashot in the Sefer Shmot. And tonight we're going to focus really on the first few psukim, actually the first two psukim of the parsha, where, just to put us in context, Moshe has just gone to Pharaoh. Pharaoh has basically said to his request that they be allowed to leave for 3 days to go on a furlough to serve Hashem, has said no. Moshe has gone back to Hashem and complained, Hashem, why did you send me if nothing's going to happen? And all that happened is that Pharaoh made the Jews work harder by not giving them straw. And now Hashem is speaking to Moshe and saying, okay, this is not the end of the story. This is only stage one. So the parasha begins with a seemingly very interesting group of psukim. Vayidaber Elokim el Moshe, vayomer lav ani Hashem. Firstly, Elokim speaks to Moshe and says, Ani Hashem. Now, we are very well familiar from Breshit of these two names of Hashem and Elokim. Hashem probably relating to, at least seemingly formed a cognate form of Haya Hove V'Yihyeh, Hashem who is all eternal and always present, and Elokim referring to all powerful. If we go back to the creation chapter, we find these two names referred to at least, and midrashically they refer to, Elokim refers to Hashem as the judge. Hashem refers to God as the Baal Rachamim, the merciful one. So these refer to these two different characteristics of Hashem as we see them. Elokim, as I said, related to the word El, which is powerful, and Hashem, as I said, a cognate of the Hove Haya V'Yihyeh, past, present, and future. So, first question the Parashim are going to try to deal with is why it's Vayidaber Elokim el Moshe vayomer lav ani Hashem, and then we get to this pasuk Gimel, which is a seemingly very, very even stranger pasuk, because Hashem tells Moshe Va'era el Avraham el Yitzchak el Yaakov, I appeared to Avram, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov beKel Shaddai, in the name of Kel Shaddai. Which is a different name of Hashem, not Elokim and not Hashem. This is another version of Hashem's name, which we've seen before. As a matter of fact, and we're going to see later on as we go through, that Kel Shaddai is exclusively used as Hashem's name in the book of Breshit, but it only appears 5 times in the book of Breshit and once in the book of Shmot right here. After this time, Kel Shaddai, that name, those two words together, does not appear again in the Torah. And we're going to go into the 5 times that it does appear, whereas the Shem of Hashem and the phrase Ani Hashem happens to appear numerous times throughout the Torah. And of course, Hashem is the primary name through which Hashem communicates the Torah to us. Yes, we'll have him called Elokim. Yes, we'll have him called other names. But I would say if we were to ask people what is the primary name of Hashem, it is the Yud Hey Vav Hey name, the 4-letter name, which is what we are most familiar with, both from the Torah and from our Tefillot. That is the name we generally use to refer to Hashem.
Everything else is description.
Yeah, okay. David just mentioned that Rambam says that Hashem, the 4-letter name, is the name of Hashem, and that's why we call it Hashem, the name. And everything else are describing different attributes of Hashem. Yet if we go back to the creation chapter, we find that when Hashem creates the world, it's Elokim, Breshit bara Elokim, throughout what I'll call the first version of the creation chapter, which is the universe-centric creation of the world. Hashem is always referred to as Elokim, and in the second creation chapter, Bereshit chapter 2, Hashem is always referred to as Hashem Elokim, because that is the human-centric version of creation, where Hashem is referred to as not just Elokim, God of justice, but Hashem Elokim, God who combines mercy and justice. And of course, the Parshanim there tell us that the reason is because Hashem realized that humanity cannot exist without some degree of rachamim. With just din, humanity would be doomed. But here, what's strange about this is Hashem says that when I appeared to Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, I used the name El Shaddai, Ushmi Hashem Lo Nodati Lahem, and my name of Hashem Lo Nodati Lahem. I did not come to make known to them. And that usage of these two juxtaposition, these two names is going to cause the Parshanim lots of problems, and we're going to see why in a minute. The Hashem continues to Moshe. Again, the Gamaki Motiat Briti Tam, I've also established my covenant with them, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Latate Lahem et Eretz Canaan, to give them the land of Canaan, at Eretz Nugureim Asher Bar, the land of their sojourning in which they dwell. Okay, so if we look back, now I'm going to do a comprehensive and brief look back to see why this pasuk seems to be a problem, these pasukim. If we go back to all of the times where Hashem mentions to one of the patriarchs that he is giving them Eretz Yisrael, there are a number of times. We're going to go through them very briefly here. We start with parshat Lech Lecha. Okay, at the beginning of parshat Lech Lecha, when Avram finally arrives, after Hashem's told him, go, he tells him to the land I'm going to show you. What's the first thing when he gets there is Vayeir Hashem al Avram. Hashem appears to him and says, Vayomer lizaracha etenet haretz hazod. So this land I'm giving to your descendants. Your seed will inherit this land, has been given this land. Interestingly enough, it doesn't say Vayera Kel Shaddai El Avram, it says Vayera Hashem El Avram. However, that is the narrator telling us that it's Hashem appearing to Avram. It's not Hashem saying to Avram, I am Hashem. Okay, so there's no mention when Hashem appears to Avram here. He doesn't give him a name. He just says, okay, how did Avram know he was talking to Hashem? Great question. How do any of the Nevi'im know they're talking to Hashem? Also a great question. Having never experienced prophecy, at least not that I'm aware of, I have to defer the answer to that question and say, I don't know. But anyway, so at least there. Now, and later on when Hashem, there's a famine, Avram goes to Egypt, he comes back, and there's a quarrel between Lot's shepherds, Avram's shepherds. Lot goes one way, Avram goes the other. In Parak Yud Gimel, we're told in Pasuk Yudalit, Vashem Amar El Avram, Acharei Parid Lot Neimo. After Lot separates from Hashem again, speaks to Avram, and he says, look around, raise your eyes and look around to the north, south, east, west. Whatever you see, I will give to you, and to your descendants for eternity. And then after that, he gives them this promise of that there'll be lots of descendants. But the focus here, as I said, is here again, we see Hashem promising Avram that he will give him the land. And again, it's Hashem Amar Avram, but he doesn't introduce who he is. It just says, he gives him this speech. Obviously, Avram knew who it was, but Hashem doesn't identify. Now, the next time Hashem appears to Avram is after the war with the kings and after the whole incident with king of Sodom and Melchizedek. It says, Vayomer Elav, Hashem appears to Avram and tells him, Ani Hashem. Now here he tells him specifically, Ani Hashem, I am Hashem. Who am I? How do I define myself? I who took you from the land of Kasdim, from the Ur Kasdim. Why? To give you this land. So here we see Hashem introducing himself as Hashem, Ani Hashem, and telling Avram that I'm going to give you this land as an inheritance. Later on, and this is the introduction to the Brit Ben Abitarim, and at the end of the Brit Ben Abitarim, again, we have the same thing. Vayomo karat Hashem et Avram Brit Leimor. Hashem creates a covenant with Avram saying, and there, by the way, it delineates the land that is going to be given to Avram, Nahar Mitzrayim Adar Kol Nahar Parat, from the Nahar Mitzrayim, from the Wadi of Egypt until the great river, the Euphrates River. And all these different nations are going to be included. The land of all of these nations will be included in that inheritance. So far we've seen, as I said, a number of times where Hashem appears, but he's only once does he say Ani Hashem. Now, finally, in Parak Yud Zayin, after we have the whole story with Sarah and Hagar and all these other things. Not Yishmael. This is before and the birth of Yishmael. This is not Yishmael. That's later on, and this is all still in Lech Lecha. Hashem appears again to Avram. Vayer Hashem al Avram. Vayomer Elav. And finally, what did he say this time? Ani El Shaddai. I am El Shaddai. So again, Hashem has now introduced him to Avram with two different names: name of Hashem, name of El Shaddai. And here we have the covenant of Brit Milah, and including which at the end, what does Hashem say? What is part of this covenant? Yes, you will have a Brit Milah, but the Brit that I'm creating is that I will give you and your inheritance, you and your descendants after you, the land that you are dwelling in, et kol eretz Canaan lachuzat olam, as an eternal possession. Elohim, and I will be their God. So we see that Avram again is promised by Hashem that he will inherit the land, and this time, though, Hashem does introduce himself by name, Ani El Shaddai. So on Avram we have one Ani Hashem, one Ani El Shaddai. Okay, so we come to Yitzchak in parshat Toldot. Hashem only appears to Yitzchak once and tells him that he's going to give him the land. But it's basically tells him twice in the same couple of psukim. Vayeroi love Hashem again. The pasuk says Vayeroi love Hashem. Vayomer al Tevet B'Tzrayim. He's about to go. There's a famine. He's about to go to Egypt. Hashem says, no, you don't go to Egypt. Stay here. Gur ba'aretz hazot. You have to stay in this land. And I will be with you and bless you. Because to you and your descendants, I will give all of these lands. And fulfill the promise that I made to Avraham. You'll have lots of descendants. So here again, we have it repeated again. I'm going to give all these lands to here. Hashem again here does not identify himself either as Hashem or as Kel Shakai. The narrator who is narrating the story tells us it's Hashem who appears to him. Okay. By the way, remember that the narrator in the Torah is always Hashem, but that's a whole different story. When I say narrator, I'm saying from the perspective of the reader, it's not Hashem. There's no direct quote Hashem telling Yitzchak who this is speaking to him. But we, the reader, are told that it's Hashem speaking to him. Okay, now we get to Yaakov. So we have Avram Yitzchak. That's it for Yitzchak. We get to parshat Vayetze. We're talking about Yaakov. Yaakov he's on his way to Lavan. He has this dream, this ladder. Who's on top of the ladder? V'nei Hashem nitzav alav vayomar. How does Hashem introduce himself to Yaakov? Ani Hashem. I am Hashem. Elokei Avram Avicha, the God of Avram. Elokei Yitzchak. And what does he tell them right away? The land on which you are lying, I will give to you and to your descendants. That's in Parshat Vayetze when he's on his way to Lavan. Parshat Vayishlach, he's on his way back from Lavan. He's had his meeting with Esav. He's gone through the incident with Dinah, and now he's finally on his way home. And Vayomer lo Elohim, Ani El Shaddai, Perei Urvei. Interestingly enough, here, who does the parsha says speaking to him? It's not Hashem, it's Elohim. Elohim comes to Yaakov and says, Ani El Shaddai, I am El Shaddai. So this is the second time that Hashem has introduced himself to one of the patriarchs as El Shaddai. Pray Urvei, go and multiply. And what is it? Again, part of the promise. The land that I've given to Abraham. Notice here it's past tense. I have given to Abraham. I will give to you in the future, and your children, descendants after you I will give the land. So we see, if we go through the Avot, we have two times where Hashem introduces himself as Hashem, once to Avram, once to Yaakov. Two times he introduces himself as El Shaddai, once to Avram, once to Yaakov. Yitzchak, Hashem just speaks to without introducing who he is. So this is why the Parshanim are going to have a major problem with our pasuk at the beginning, where Hashem says, I appear to them only as El Shaddai, and Shmi Hashem lo nodati lahem. Seems a direct contradiction of the pasukim we've just quoted. This is the problem the Parshanim are having with this pasuk, and that's why we're going to try to understand what does it mean when Hashem says that I appeared to the Avot with El Shaddai and I didn't tell them my name Hashem. Just for completeness, since I mentioned that El Shaddai appears 6 times in the Torah, 3 times we've already mentioned, once in our parsha, these 2 times where Hashem speaks, and the other 3 times Hashem is referred to as El Shaddai are in Tefillot by the Avot, when Yitzchak blesses Yaakov and is sending him on his way to Lavan, he says, El Shaddai Yivarech Otcha. He says, El Shaddai should bless you. And by the way, Hashem, he should give you the blessing of Abraham, that you will be the one who inherits the land. So perhaps, based on this, I might say that El Shaddai is somehow connected to the inheritance of the land, or Hashem's promise to give the land to the Jewish people. Later on, when Yaakov is sending the brothers down to Yosef, of course, he doesn't know he's Yosef at this point. Part of the tefillah, he says, El Shaddai, Hashem, El Shaddai should let you find mercy before this man, this powerful ruler who's insisted you bring Binyamin, and he will send back Binyamin, and you'll come back with Shimon and Binyamin. And if it doesn't work out, I'll have to survive without Binyamin for the time being. The other time when El Shaddai appears is when Yaakov is asking Yosef. Yosef has come with his sons for blessing. Yaakov says to Yosef, El Shaddai niroi elai b'luz b'eretz Canaan v'yivarech. It was El Shaddai who appeared to me in Luz and blessed me and told me that I will natati love. And here Yaakov is referring to the specific pasuk we mentioned before, where Hashem comes to him and says, Ani El Shaddai. So we see that El Shaddai is not the preferred name of Hashem. It's not a very familiar name. It's not something we're very used to. The Parshanim want to tell us that El Shaddai is related to creation, that El Shaddai is the word Shaddai refers to Sha'amar Dai, that this is El, the mighty one who said enough, that just like Hashem knew how to start creation, Hashem knew when it was time for creation to pause, that his direct input to creation had to stop, and it was now up to humanity to move forward, and that is why it's Shaddai. Although the Parshanim also want to say that Yaakov, in his prayer, the reason you'll notice in the middle one of these three occurrences, there's no mention of Eretz Yisrael, which El Shaddai seems to be connected to, because Hashem, who is the creator, and we recognize that through Shaddai, is the one who decides who gets what land, and he is given this little piece of property here in the middle of it all to the Jewish people. And that is, I think, a critical component of El Shaddai, is understanding that the reason we're here is not because the UN said so, and not because the world felt they owed the Jews something. It's because Hashem said so. And that's the only reason Jews have ever been here, and that's the only reason Jews ever will be here, is because Hashem said, this is your home. Okay. So we now have to try to figure out what is it that our parsha is telling us when it says, Ushmi Hashem lo nodati lahem, that I appeared to the Avot as El Shaddai and never told them I am Hashem, which seems, as I said, a direct contradiction to the psukim we've just quoted. So, of course, as we usually do, we start, of course, with the parsha called Rashi, who says the following. Vayomer elav ani Hashem. When Hashem speaks to Moshe, first thing he says, I am Hashem. And here Rashi is telling us that the name of Hashem, as it is used in the context of this beginning of this week's parsha, is Ne'eman l'shalem sachar tov lamitalchim lefanai. Hashem means that I am trustworthy to reward those that follow my way, that walk in front of me. And then he says, now that's what Hashem means as Ani Hashem. Now he's telling Moshe, why is he telling this to Moshe? Now you just complained, Moshe, why did I send you? Realize that I didn't just pick you out of nowhere, that there was no special reason to send you. I have sent you, Moshe, to be my agent to fulfill the words that I spoke to the Avot. Okay, and that's his answer to Moshe. In other words, Moshe has complained that what's going on, and to Hashem, why did you send me? Why is this going on? Hashem says, the reason I sent you is because I need Hashem. I realize I now have to, I want to move forward. I have to fulfill the promise that I made to the Avot. You are going to be the agent, and that's why I sent you. By the way, Rashi now parenthetically says, we've seen that the phrase Ani Hashem has this interpretation of somebody who rewards those who walk in front of him. But that I am Hashem who is trustworthy to pay back all debts. And by the way, this works both ways. Shua Morei Til Onesh, we find it considering punishment. Kigon, V'chilalto et Shem Elokecha, Ani Hashem. If you will profane the name of Hashem, Ani Hashem, I am Hashem, who will pay you, who will ensure that you get paid back for the Chil Hashem. Shomer Eitzel Kiyum HaMitzvot. And similarly, we have the same phrase used concerning fulfillment of mitzvot, Kigon. And Rashi again just brings one of the many numerous examples. When you fulfill the mitzvot and observe them, I am Hashem. And what does that mean? I will reward you. So Rashi says that phrase Ani Hashem, really very simply, while in our context, it means to fulfill my promise, but it means the promise is made as part of the concept of Sachar V'Onesh, that Hashem is the one who rewards and punishes us for our accomplishments or lack thereof. Rashi continues again to explain now. The Avot, obviously, I appeared to the Avot, but Keil Shaddai. Why does Hashem use this name of Keil Shaddai when he's talking about the conversation he's had with the Avot? Hiftachtim haftachot. I made them promises. V'chulan amarti lohem ani El Shaddai. Now Rashi says very interesting. V'chulan, in all of them, I said ani El Shaddai. Now, if you go back, we had a whole bunch of promises to Avram where ani El Shaddai was not mentioned. We had Yitzchak never mentioned. But what I think Rashi is saying is that El Shaddai means when I make promises, that's the name I'm known by. So in other words, that attribute of El Shaddai is El Shaddai who foresees things that are going to happen in the future. Ushmi Hashem lo nodati lahem. What does it mean? Ushmi Hashem lo nodati lahem. If we find that Hashem does tell them his name Hashem. Lo hodati ein ksiv kan. The fact that they knew that Hashem's name was Hashem is not what the pasuk says. Lo nodati, I did not make aware to them, is not the same as lo hodati, I did not tell them. So in other words, he told them his name was Hashem. Elo, what is lo nodati lahem, which the pasuk says? Lo nikarti lahem b'midat amitot sheli. I did not show them. They did not recognize me in all of my fullness. Shaleh nikra shmi Hashem, in all of the aspects that my name is Hashem. Never amet devarai, because Hashem refers to Hashem who fulfills His word. And since they didn't see the fulfillment of the word, that's why it says lo nodati. They were not given the full awareness of the name of Hashem. Sharif tachtim v'lo kiyamti, because I made them promises that I did not fulfill. In other words, because it wasn't time to fulfill the promises. The promises were made primarily to the descendants. But since I did not fulfill them in their lifetime, he's saying, therefore, I only appeared to them as El Shaddai. They did not recognize the full extent of the name of Hashem. That's Rashi's pshat, and the rest of the parshanim are sort of going to flow around with that, but we're going to get a couple of different nuances as we go through. Simcha Chachamim simply says that Rashi atzma fresh my fresh peish ben Hashem ben El Shaddai. Al zeh perish hariftachti v'lo kiyamti ratzalem adayin lo kiyamti iftachti hu shadayin lo zachu mitzad ma'asehem. Chacham is adding that Rashi's whole point here is that Hashem, which says I will fulfill the promise, is continuous. We might El Shaddai could also be I made promises and will fulfill them, but we're going to see later on that El Shaddai, the promises made with El Shaddai are contingent promises. Promises made with Hashem are unconditional. In Kenyesh Afresh Naftacha b'Shem Hashem who below tonight afilu im yechatu kita parishim. So in other words, Simcha Chachamim is saying that Rashi is going to explain that a promise made with Hashem is unconditional, that Hashem will fulfill the promise even if we aren't necessarily worthy of it. And that's why when it comes to the exodus from Egypt, where the Jews were not yet worthy of it, he says to Moshe, Ani Hashem, I have to come with this promise of Hashem, because if I come with El Shaddai, well, they're not worthy of me fulfilling the promise, so I'm not going to fulfill it. But when I come with the name of Hashem, they are, then I have to fulfill it, even if they're not necessarily worthy at this point. Okay. Rashbam follows in a similar vein. Says El Shaddai means Haftacha al Hatid lo kiyamti adayon. That El Shaddai refers to a promise made for the future that has not yet been fulfilled. Again, a little bit different than Rashi, because Rashi says, well, I promised them is the present and future, whereas Rashbam is saying, no, El Shaddai is always a promise only for the future that has not yet been fulfilled. Okay, so El Shaddai. However, Rashbam adds here, Ikar Shmi Hashemhu. My primary name, as David wanted to say before, is Hashem. Okay, so and this is exactly what Hashem means. Even though I appeared to the Avod in El Shaddai making promises for the future, my primary recognizability is through the name of Hashem. Lo nodati lahem, I did not make them. Whereas lo nikleti lahem, I did not reveal to them. Bikar Hashem, through the name of Hashem, Ela be'el Shaddai. That's what he's trying to say to Moshe. Is not that they were not aware of the name of Hashem, but they did not see the full power of Hashem because these things were not fulfilled during their lifetimes. Ubiyamecha. Now, why is he telling all this to Moshe? Because my intention is in your lifetime to fulfill the promise to give them land of Canaan. Now, ultimately, this does not get fulfilled quite in Moshe's lifetime, but immediately thereafter. Okay, so that's Rashbam. Ramban is going to go back and give us a recap, of course, as he usually does. He always usually quotes Rashi and paraphrases Rashi, so that's what Ramban does here again. Lashon Rashi says, here's what Rashi said. Firstly, he says, "Vayidaber Elokim el Moshe diber to mishpat al sheikh shalomar." He's Vayidaber as opposed to Vayomer Elokim el Moshe. It's Vayidaber Elokim rather than Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, which is what we're much more used to. Firstly, Vayidaber is a stronger language than Vayomer, and Elokim is Midat Hadin as opposed to Hashem, which is Midat Rachman. Hashem speaks harshly to Moshe because he complained to Hashem, why did you make things worse for the people? Vayomer Lav Ani Hashem, and he answered him, Ani Hashem, Nemon L'Shalim Star L'Halchim L'Fanai B'Tamim, which is exactly what Rashi says, that I am Hashem who will reward those who walk in front of me. So again, he basically just goes here quoting Rashi, and similar as saying now, but he does add this: the Afal Pisha Dayan Lo Higia Zaman, even though the time has not yet arrived. He did not make the time come during their lifetimes. Okay, so the fact that it says lo nodati is to remind us that it wasn't the time yet. The time had not yet quite arrived for these promises to be fulfilled, and that's why Hashem didn't fulfill them. But nonetheless, Hashem is reminding Moshe that they hadn't yet been fulfilled. Now, Ramban then paraphrases Chacham Rabbi Avraham, the Ibn Ezra parish. Beit Be'el Shaddai Moshecha. The Beit of Be'el Shaddai continues on. He says, he wants to tell us to understand the pasuk. He says, Ushmi Be'el Shaddai Ushmi Hashem lo nodatem. And he wants to say Uvishmi Hashem is what he wants to say. That the bet continues as though it was written both before El Shaddai and both before Shmi Hashem. So even though the pasuk says Ushmi Hashem, Ibn Ezra wants to translate the verse as though it says Uvishmi Hashem lo nodatem, and through my name, which is basically what Rashi is saying, but it's through the name, not by the name, but through the name and what it entails. Okay, what is the name of Hashem? What does the name of Kel Shaddai mean? Menatseach Marchot Shamayim Lasot Imam Nisim Gidolim Shelo Nitbatel Mehem Min HaOlam. That the name El Shaddai, Ibn Ezra wants to say, refers to miracles that are explainable, that are not earth-shattering miracles. So that Hashem, when Hashem saved the Avod when they were in trouble, he saved them in natural means. B'rav Pado Tami Mavet, even though Hashem saved them from death during famine, and during war, he saved them from the sword. And he made sure they had possessions and wealth and riches and all sorts of good things. However, all of this, all the things Hashem promised us will happen in terms of brachot and kololot if we follow it versus don't follow. Ibn Ezra, according to Ramban's paraphrase of Ibn Ezra, that everything that happens to us happens through a nace. In other words, when Hashem, quote, rewards us for mitzvot that we have done in Olam Hazeh, that is through natural means. Even though it's miraculous, it's cloaked in natural means. For example, if we look at the fact that there was a famine, well, Hashem didn't miraculously make food rain down only on Avram's house during the famine. Avram went to Egypt during the famine. When there was a famine in Yitzchak's life, he went and lived in Gerar. Yes, he was successful in terms of planting and plowing, but it was in a natural way rather than in a miraculous way. And similarly, in all of these things. Okay, the reward for the Torah and the punishment for not fulfilling it in this world is all through miracle, but they're hidden miracles. In other words, they're not open, and that is what Ibn Ezra says encompasses in El Shaddai. El Shaddai means that I work through Teva. I work through the natural way of things. Okay. However, now he says to Moshe, but however, now the four-letter name of Hashem, that's going to happen now. Lono datlem. They were not aware of that because I didn't do the. There were no supernatural cataclysmic miracles that happened to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. I don't know. Say getting saved from a fiery furnace, according to the Midrash. I don't know. Maybe not. But maybe again, we can say that Avram, found an escape route in the furnace or whatever. So again, but it wasn't like Hashem sent a whirlwind to blow the fire out or anything else to destroy the furnace. So I think from that extent, it was a naturally explainable miracle, perhaps. Okay. Now here he's telling them, and that's why he's telling Moshe, now that's the way I'd worked with the Avot. But now with Bnei Yisrael, they have to know Ani Hashem. Why? Remind Am Yisrael this great name of Hashem. Now, the things you're going to see in Egypt, now we're talking about supernatural, cataclysmic, earth-shattering miracles that everybody is going to recognize that this is Hashem v'yedu ki ani Hashem osekol. They'll understand and realize that Hashem is the creator who's doing it all. And this is, again, Ramban's paraphrase of Ibn Ezra, that the difference between Kel Shakai and Hashem is hidden miracles versus open, fathomable miracles. Okay. Now then, Ramban goes on a totally different direction. He goes through this a little bit more now. Okay. He says the following. Now, then Ramban then asks the question, why does it start with Vo'era el Avram, a lashon of Riyah, I appeared to Avram, and then it says Lo Nodati, I did not show them. Why doesn't it either say Va'ivada, I became known to Avram, became the name of Kel Shaddai, and the name of Hashem I didn't make known to them, or I appeared to them in the name of Avram, and I appeared to them in the name of I didn't appear to them in the name of Hashem. Why do we switch from appearing to knowing? And Ramban wants to say that this relates to the level of prophecy. Since the Avot had their prophecies generally in a dream or a trance-like state, therefore it says, I appeared to them. Since Moshe was at a higher level of prophecy, it says, Lo nodati lohem kasher nodati lach. Like you are aware, you Moshe are aware of what it means to have prophecy face to face at a much higher level of prophecy. The Avot did not reach that level of prophecy. That's why it uses the term Vo'era. as opposed to the vanoaditi. I appear to them, nodati. Well, derech ha'emet, and that's why Rambam wants to say that the real thing, what is the pasuk? Hapapah kazav kipshuto mashma'o nera ani Hashem yir'eti lahem biaspaklaria shel kel shakai. That the way that Hashem interacted with the avod, even when he told them his name was Hashem, was in the realm of prophecy at the level of El Shaddai. Kitam, like we have in another psukim, b'maro love et vada. When Hashem is describing the different levels of nevuah in the incident with Miriam, he says to Aaron, you guys got to understand that Moshe is a completely different level of prophecy than all the other prophets. He describes all the other prophets as b'marai lavet vada. Through a vision I appear to them, a dream, a trance-like state. Okay? However, they did not see this clear vision that Moshe had of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe was at a different level. Like the Torah says at the end. There was never rose another Navi like Moshe who knew Hashem panim el panim, face to face, in a different level of nevuah. So what Ramban wants to say is that this different level of nevuah is exactly what Hashem is alluding to here. That the Avot knew the level of Kel Shaddai. You, Moshe, have a different level of prophecy of panim el panim. The Avot yadu Hashem am yuchad avalo no lam b'nevuah. Even though the Avot knew Hashem, they realized Hashem, they had a great awareness of Hashem, it was not through their level of prophecy, it was through their awareness of Hashem in the world. Therefore, whenever Hashem speaks to Avraham or Avraham speaks to Hashem, it's with the name of Aleph Daled Adonai, rather than or Hashem Adonai. Okay, not with the name of Hashem only. So therefore, again, the Elokim was something that, and Adonai was something that the Avot recognized, but not to the level of Moshe as a prophet. In other words, they knew it from a perspective of their faith and their awareness of Hashem, but not through prophecy, whereas Moshe has a different level of prophecy. Okay. And this is why the name El Shaddai no longer appears after our parsha. Once Moshe enters on the scene, and we're talking about Moshe's prophecy that he is the one who is leading Bnei Israel through the rest of the Torah, the name El Shaddai disappears. Now, because the Torah was given with the name Hashem, the four-letter name, not the lower level of prophecy of El Shaddai. Okay. That's it for what I want to say from Ramban. He goes much more, but and then I want to just go now to, I gotta skip a couple of drashim that I'm not going to get to. Okay. Tolos Yitzchak has a couple of interesting comments that I wanted to get through. One is he goes through all of the different points where Hashem is referred to as Hashem in the discussion with the Avot, which we've already talked about. But then he says, if we look at the pasuk that I appear to the Avot as El Shaddai, and we're saying that El Shaddai is a lower level of prophecy than Moshe's level of Ani Hashem, then he's saying that the Avot are lower than he's lowering the level of the Avot, lowering the Chavod Avot Shlodirahem B'Shem Hashem, B'Shem HaMefarsh El Be'el Shaddai. Ulevanav Kibin Otam Al Hashemayim B'Malochain Amol B'Nei Yisrael Ani Hashem. Seems very strange that Hashem, if we talk about how great the Avot were, why did Hashem appear to them with a lower level of prophecy or a lower level of awareness than he does to Am Yisrael? So Atshuva, he gives the answer. Shemisha Niglalo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Be'el Shaddai Modioto Shabar Olam Yesh Me'ayin. The concept of El Shaddai is that Hashem is the creator. He created the world from absolute nothing. The person who is Hashem appears to as El Shaddai has to take it on faith. He doesn't have a sensory way or an absolute awareness through his physical senses that Hashem exists. Hashem tells him that, and he has to believe it. He has to take it on faith. So El Shaddai is you have to accept on faith that God is the creator. Me sheniglo HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'shem Hashem moralo b'chush HaKadosh Baruch Hu bar olam yesh meyayin. One who sees the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the name of Hashem sees him visually or through some of his senses in a sensory way. He can see how that Hashem created the world from nothing. How can he do that if he wasn't there when the world was created? Great question, but the answer is Shaddai Moresh Shenemar Olam Dai. Okay, what does it mean? Where is he seeing that? How do we see that? Because the Avot only had El Shaddai. I told them that I created the world, the Minubi, and they trusted me. So I didn't have to, quote, prove to them that I created the world. I told them, they accepted it on faith, that's it. Aval now, he's telling Moshe, I'm going to show Bnei Yisrael so they will sensorily see, they will feel, they will visualize the awareness of God as a creator. How? Through the plagues that I'm going to bring to Egypt, the splitting of the sea, ultimately the Mamad Har Sinai. Why are all of these necessary? Because we're no longer talking about individuals, we're talking about a nation. And for a nation to reach the level of that these three individuals reached is seemingly impossible to have everybody reach that level of complete emunah, complete faith in Hashem, simply because Hashem told them that he is the creator. For I believe it, they needed some reinforcement, and that is exactly what Hashem is telling Moshe. That is the difference between the Avot and Kel Shaddai and Am Yisrael now that are going to see the name of Hashem. Shmi Hashem lo nodati lahem. So that's basically what he says. In other words, just like before, when Moshe says to Hashem at the burning bush, they're not going to believe me that Hashem appeared to me. They're not going to believe it that Hashem created the world, that there's an Hashem who's the creator, until they see it and they can experience it. And that is exactly why Hashem gives them the sign of the staff turning into a snake, because again, it's a complete change in the nature of an object, taking something that is wood, that is a piece of wood cut from a tree, and turning it into a living object. And he says, and he goes through a whole long thing. The magicians did the same thing. But he says the magicians didn't. They just made it look like it. In other words, they did an illusion that made it look like a snake, whereas in Moshe's case, it was a real snake. And that, through doing that, Am Yisrael was able to believe. He goes, as you see, it's a rather long thing. Okay. Final thought. Our Chaim. The Or Chaim goes through a whole long explanation. Again, he quotes some stuff similar to the Ramban in terms of the different levels of prophetic awareness. He takes from Rashi in terms of the different intents and meanings of these different names of Hashem. But he closes with the following. This is why he's telling Moshe, Yesh l'chol Moshe, you have to be aware. When I told the Avot, specifically when he told Avraham that there was going to be a redemption, that they were going to be enslaved for 400 years, that was in El Shaddai. That was the promise of El Shaddai. Uvo samti legalut givul, and through that, in the name El Shaddai, the exile had a specific endpoint, a maximum endpoint. The Amarti lo die. That's why El Shaddai. I told Avraham, die. There would be enough. After 400 years, the exile would have enough. That's why it's El Shaddai. Avo bechina acheret lo nodati. I did not tell Avram or intimate or even hint to Avram that there was another way for the galut to end. Hang on a second. I did not explain to Avram that there was another way for the galut to end, and that was through the midah of rachamim, which is what Hashem represents. Im yivakshu v'yoru rachamim kimosha aso Yisrael. If they will pray to me and they will wake up and ask for mercy from Hashem, and that's why Hashem says v'gam shamati, and 2 psukim later, that's why v'gam shamati et nakat b'nei Yisrael. I've heard the cries of b'nei Yisrael, saying they're calling out to Hashem please have mercy on us and save us. Even though the time is not yet ripe, the 400 years aren't over, through the name of Hashem, the four-letter name of mercy, I have had mercy on them. And that is why you have to tell Am Yisrael Ani Hashem that I have heard their prayers, I am having mercy on them, and I am going to redeem them. I think the bottom line of all of this is that we have different ways that we experience Hashem, but we have to, whatever way we experience Hashem, we have to try to strengthen that experience, and we have to also remember, I think this last why I close with this Orach Chaim, that when it comes to redemption is a two-way experience. It's not a one-way experience that we sit back and wait for Hashem to redeem us. We have to be active. We have to be, even if we're not active in coming close to Hashem, we have to be active in calling out and asking Hashem for mercy, to have mercy upon the Jewish people, upon humanity, that he should send the Mashiach b'mheira v'yameinu. Thank you all. I now open up to questions, comments, and feedback. Anybody? Everybody? Nobody? All right. Thank you all. Hope you have a good rest of the week. Shabbat shalom. And Bez Hashem, we'll see you all next week.